Everyone from Florida is stupid. Everyone from Florida is dumb. I might not be the brightest guy, but next to them my IQ's high. If they had guitars, here's how they'd strum.
Podcasting from the IAAPA show floor.
We just sat on a plane for 3 hours to come to Florida, God's waiting room.
Rum is the power, rum is the key, rum is the thing that will set us free. Rum, rum, rum,
And nerdy.
rum, rum, ahoy! Rum, rum, rum,
And nerdy.
We give you This Week in Florida.
From the IAAPA show floor, here are your hosts, Greg and Garrick.
Hey everybody, welcome to Rum and Nerdy. I'm Greg.
And I'm Garrick.
And welcome to episode 4.47.4, day 4 of IAAPA 24. And today
Today is brought to you by the number 4.
yeah, and lozenges. So today we are at the Bridgewater booth, and we have with us Chris, and we have John. Say
Hello.
welcome.
Hi, it is indeed the fourth day because you can hear it in our voices.
Yeah,
Everybody is Barry White at IAAPA on day 4.
yeah. It's just the yelling and the screaming. It's so loud in every room. Anyway, thanks for hosting us. And I'm excited about a couple different reasons. One, John, you and I are both from Kansas City. Have a lot of our, like, all the things that we talk about, because Garrick loves Kansas City, especially barbecue.
Mostly the barbecue.
I think that was actually, we knew each other, but I think it was that TEA Discovery weekend we did in Kansas City where we had barbecue in the lobby of the hotel together.
my God.
Yeah,
That you guys brought back because the line was too long to eat in the place, that we really hung out and got to know each other.
Yeah,
Everybody checking
Joe's.
into that hotel was just like, "Whoa, where did that
Where's
come? Where did that
that?
come from? I want that."
We just bought like a pound of pork and a pound of it was the whole thing.
As one does.
Yes. Anyway, so introduce Bridgewater.
Sure, I'll go first. Bridgewater Studio is a design and fabrication and media production house in Chicago, Illinois. I came up with a cool term the other day. We can handle anything from ideation to celebration and anywhere in between.
Nice.
And we're also super agnostic about where we plug into a process. We don't have to do the whole thing. We're happy as clams to do the whole thing, but we can just do master planning, we can just do design, we can just fabricate. And our fabrication capacity is large, I would say. We've got a big shop, but we've got also a sort of abnormal suite of competencies. We have the sort of normal, carpentry, paint, metals, but we're very digital first in our fabrication methodologies. We have a full 3D print shop with enormous 3D print capacity, full graphics capacity in-house, and we have a media production house under our auspices as well. It makes us really, really nimble and kind of unicorns, and we like it.
Which is awesome because you don't see a lot of shops that have all of those different skill sets together under one roof.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, we know that for a fact from being on the client side of the equation not too long ago. My friend John here, who is our SVP of Design and Development, and I, both spent a long time on the client side of the fence.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact that there's not this suite of capabilities under one roof really anywhere we're aware of. And so we're real intentional about building someplace unique, and it's working well right now. John, do you want to talk a little bit about our design shop and what we bring to bear there?
Sure, yeah. And that's part that we've been growing really is the front end of the jobs. Coming to us, whether it's kind of got a concept in hand and you need design assist and you want to take it the rest of the way, or whether you come with a blank sheet of paper and an idea, it's really been advantageous for us in terms of providing that full service all under one roof.
Nice.
So, having been there, one of the, as somebody who's been a fabricator and a shop owner and on the scenery side and everything, one, yes, your 3D printing apparatus is freaking amazing. You have was it 13 machines?
We have 9 machines. We have the 7 dwarves plus Snow White plus the Evil Queen.
That's right.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs will all do a meter by 600 millimeters on a single bed each. And in Freedom units, that's 39 inches by 39 inches.
Yeah, how many eagles per cheeseburger can you 3D print?
Right. And the Evil Queen will do 1,700 millimeters by 600 by 800. So we can produce some really big stuff, and the surface fidelity is exceptional, which allows us to nest parts together with a high level of accuracy and a high level of confidence. People can't see it here, but there's an image of a giant dragon on the wall behind these two, and that's an entirely 3D printed structure. It's 6 meters long.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So the other thing I would say is your metalwork. You saw me geeking out when you were showing me how, and telling the story of the progression through, you had the old nibbler making holes, and then you did this, but now you just, when you have a highly integrated piece of angle iron, you make it instead of the
way I tell the story, we've got one of our laser cutters, the one that primarily deals with metal, is right next to our CNC press brake, which is huge. And I say, because I was a fabricator when I was a kid, in the old days, if you wanted a piece of 2x2 angle iron with 40 holes in it, you would cut a piece of 2x2 angle iron, you would lay out 40 holes, and you would drill them on the drill press. Mm-hmm. We eventually progressed to being able to do that, cut, lay out, punch, with a Piranha. And and so now what we would do is just laser cut a piece of plate with 40 holes in it and then bend it into a piece of angle.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that one little example is really emblematic of our workflow, right?
Yeah.
We try to apply that same thing to kind of everything we build.
It's the design methodology at the front end that just makes the little everything is about making the next step a little easier, a little faster, a little bit more efficient. And even on like the boxes that you were doing with just plate steel, instead of it's simply just, hey, set them up together and run your bead. It's those little notches so they keystone together. They click together, and so it inherently lines itself up.
Yeah, I mean, why, if you're going to cut something with the laser, why not design it to tab and slot together so that when you weld it, you don't have to build a jig.
Yeah.
You just snap the pieces together, and they stay that way just long enough to drop, a bead on there.
Yeah.
So that kind of thinking really pervades the whole life cycle of a project, from even when we're, just master planning, right? We're still thinking about the next step and the next step and the next step all the way through.
How are you going to break it down? What do those parts really look like?
Absolutely. And that's especially true when we're doing a design build project, because, one of the things that historically has driven us crazy is that we see designs that are ready for, theoretically ready for production, and they're not budget aligned at all. And so everything stops in its tracks. The design goes back for value engineering, which is a term I hate so much. I've banished
There's
it.
no value, there's no engineering.
Right, I've banished it from the lexicon. I call it design optimization. And
I love
so, but why do you have to go through that? When we design build, we try to keep things as linear as humanly possible, right? It's somebody from our production team's at the table day one of design, right? So that we, keep the thing on rails as much as possible. And that does not mean that we are squelching creativity in any way. I think we're opening ourselves up to the art of the possible.
So with that and the innovation and all of that you do, you've got a toy over here. You were really briefly yesterday, you kind of come see the new thing. What is it? What's that about?
Well, we're taking some of the visualizations that we often do for our clients to let them see what it's going to be like when they're in the space, and give them a real look at it too, because a lot of times if it's a museum client, the ceilings aren't as beautiful as they might be in a fancy watercolor rendering. So since we work so much in 3D already, we've got the opportunity to take these models that we're drafting from and walk the clients through them. And what we've done here is take it one step further. We've dropped it into the Unreal Engine, which is a lot of fun to use for visualization, and we've been doing some of that of late. just using a keyboard and a mouse or an Xbox controller. But what we've done here is a little different. We've brought a multi-taction table. This is a product that exists. We didn't invent it.
Yeah.
But it's a touch screen and LED display, but it can also read objects you put on it. So we 3D printed a few little objects representing different projects that we've worked on. You place them on the screen. It makes our big LED screen, our 10-foot LED screen, show you the POV you would have from the ground plan that's on the multi-taction screen. And then you can use your person like a little character and literally drag it around through the exhibit or the attraction or the things that we've brought and see what it would be like. And it's really pretty powerful. People have been coming around just to see that, and which is a great hook, and we tell them everything else we do. But even one of our current clients said, our next milestone review with the CEO, it's got to be on this thing.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And so this is just like kind of an upgrade to the pre-visualization and the design process and everything else, and just makes all that efficiency carry on.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a kind of a natural extension, but we thought it would be interesting to bring something that represented the fact that we can do digital interactivity and AV systems integration as part of our scope, but then actually take you through our portfolio on it. And so it was really supposed to be a novel way to explore our projects, but it's kind of turned into a life of its own, and it's been a great thing to bring people around the booth.
Yeah, it's very meta. The thing we want to show our prowess at being storytellers, and in a multimodal way, and so we've done that in a multimodal way. So it's pretty cool.
And meta is a buzzword, so we have to do a shot.
Oh no,
we didn't actually bring any alcohol. So you seem to be a fan of coining terms. What?
I am.
It's your superpower.
It's my superpower, yeah. I have a couple of late that I've really been harping on. One describes, really my life on the client side of the fence for many years as an operator, as we call it in the world of themed entertainment. From my years as director of planning, or rather my years as director of project management and operations at the Museum of Science and Industry, and that term is experiential depreciation.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds fancy.
It is fancy, but we've all lived through it. What it means is that everything we create as creators of experiences, the minute we've bolted it to the floor and guests have access to it, it begins to depreciate in some way, right? And there are very known, very easily quantifiable forces that bring to bear that cause that depreciation. And I kind of think about it as a battle for relevance. There's aesthetic relevance, there's tactical relevance, right? There's content relevance when you're thinking about a museum. Aesthetic relevance is easy to define, right? Does it look like somebody touched this thing in the last 5 years? Is it up to date? That's sort of like the basic idea behind taking care of stuff. Tactical relevance is this storytelling modality of this time and place, right? Does it feel like this is, the trend from 15 years ago, or does it feel current? And so the idea behind, experiential depreciation is, if you arm yourself with the tools necessary to combat it, then you stand half a chance of being able to stay on top of it. If you ignore the fact that experiential depreciation exists, then you find yourself just ripping out entire attractions because they've gone to seed, and you have no choice but to completely replace them. But if you can arm yourself and your staff and your board of directors, to really stay on top of it, then you can keep experiences fresh in an iterative, ongoing way.
And now, are you designing those experiences so that the updates or those little things you need to keep them fresh are the methodology for doing that is already baked into the experience? Absolutely,
to the extent possible, absolutely. And that it comes all the way down to things like materiality. Just as one small example. Everybody loves powder coat, but it's impossible to touch up. So if you're going to be in a situation where, something's going to get nicked a million times by belt buckles, maybe spend a little bit of money up front and make that brushed stainless, which, all you have to do to touch that up is hit it with a Scotch-Brite pad, right?
Yeah.
If you decided to cheap out a little bit on the front end and powder coat it, you will never touch it up. It'll get nicked by belt buckles, and it'll stay nicked by belt buckles for the rest of its life. There's little things like that really add up to, on the design side, really give you a leg up in being able to keep that sort of currency in place. And that's true, when we think about digital interactives too. Really, have you given yourself the architecture necessary in a digital interactive to keep that content fresh, or is everything just baked into the code, right? So the sort of digital version of ripping out an entire attraction is your only choice to update that digital interactive is just chuck the whole thing, right? Instead of giving yourself an architecture to iteratively update the content.
That's really cool. I've never thought about it in quite those terms. I mean, we always look at it from a CapEx, OpEx standpoint,
right?
Of hey, we can't afford to put that in day one. The trade-off is every single year our annual repair budget is going to be something ridiculous. That's
right. A little bit more CapEx reduces OpEx. I mean, that's the really simple way of saying this. And as Mr. Center pointed out, I've got a penchant for coining phrases, and another one that sort of ties into this that I enamored with lately is techno-experiential risk. Right.
I think I have to give you $20. So, pardon me. There's that throat thing again. One other thing I appreciate about the work that you guys do, and it's kind of funny because some people, they take knowledge in this institutional knowledge or just tricks, and you kind of silo them. They're like, hey, there's some things you share you don't. You're not like that at all. You just really throw information out there. And specifically, I want to talk about, you have done quite a bit on LinkedIn, I think it was, where you kind of did, I don't know if it's a report's not the right word. You basically said, hey, I'm going to talk about this subject in, I think it was 3 parts.
Yeah. Sure.
You're going to describe it way better than I do. Why don't we talk about that?
Well, this was the experiential depreciation. The 3 parts were experiential depreciation, the total cost of experience ownership, right, which really defines the OpEx side of the equation, as Garrick was pointing out. What does it really mean to own an attraction or an exhibit or an experience, right? What is the actual total cost of owning that thing? Because if you think the total cost of owning that thing is buying it and never touching it again, then you are not, in fact, combating experiential depreciation, right? And so it's going to catch up with you. And so the total cost of experience ownership, really contemplate what it takes to keep something really, really, really working. And in a science museum, environment, that means not only does the thing turn on and does it function, right? But it means, is it still, and right now we're talking about like an electromechanical interactive, right, as an example. Is it still functioning as a storytelling tool the same way that it did on day one? That doesn't mean you've turned it on and all the lights come on and it's like, quote unquote, works. It's not working unless it's actually conveying the phenomenon it was trying to convey the same way it did on day one, right? And that takes work. That takes work and that takes cost. That is the total cost of owning that experience, right? And so the third part of that stuff that I wrote was, so part one being exploring experiential depreciation. Second was exploring the total cost of experience ownership. And the third part, and I'm going to pass off to my friend John for this, is really designing for a world of evolving expectations, right? So we can design to sort of take care of parts 1 and 2 and look to the future.
Yeah, it's totally true, and a lot of that comes from the content or the story that you're trying to convey, and is that story going to change over time? We've been focusing a little bit more on the science museum world than themed entertainment, but I think you can make that true in either case. IPs and franchises go on, things change, IPs and franchises die. Science content changes, science opinion changes, and so we try to work with people to make sure they understand where are the parameters in this, what might be something you want to update, what are we pretty sure is evergreen, and sometimes you still get surprised, but try to have the conversations about it.
I recently rewatched the movie Grease. I loved that movie. I kind of grew up, and I was watching it with my kids, and it gets to that that song where they're talking about their summer romance, and I realized this song is not a great song for kids. I'm going to say it. It's a little rapey.
Yeah,
and
hasn't aged well.
Yeah, that didn't age at all. And it was like growing up, it's like I don't know what they're talking about. It's just a great musical and hot rods, and so you don't do that. Don't make Grease into an experiential. I don't know.
It is experiential depreciation, but a lot of that is true in developing content both for attractions and museums and anywhere else, is to kind of look at what's the future landscape going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite socialist, Howard Zinn, once said, and he was talking about politics at the time, you can't stand still on a moving train, right? And,
I like that.
right, and so I think about that term a lot when I think about the work that we do, and I think about this conversation that we're having now, right? Time moves forward. People's expectations evolve by the second, right? The ravages of time come to bear on all of these things that we create, right? So we are either, if we are standing still, then we are in fact moving backwards in all of the ways.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a really great thing. So obviously we're kind of having some audio issues, so this is going to take a minute. But before we go, like what's your biggest takeaway this week? What's whether it's like a new technology, a trend, what is the thing that has kind of really gotten your attention this week at IAAPA 2024? And I drug out the description of it as long as I can because I see you're both thinking this over.
It's so hard to nail down one thing at IAAPA. It's like trying to do business inside a Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah, IAAPA. Like doing business in a Chuck E. Cheese. So I've thought about it a minute, and one thing isn't really standing out at me, but I did have an epiphany the other day, which is that, as I mentioned, I was on the client side of the equation of this party we're in, for like 16 years, and shows like this, when you're rolling into the door, with you're working for a huge institution, you're in a decision-making position. Everybody knows you're up to stuff. Everybody knows you've got money, right? You're a target, and it's exhausting. And I was sort of exhausted by all of these shows, whether it be IAAPA or AAM or Aztec or anything. And I am having so much fun this week just telling the stories of the cool stuff we do and the stories of the way we do the cool stuff we do.
Yeah.
It's invigorating and energizing, and I am physically exhausted at the end of every day, but I'm not mentally exhausted at the end of every day here. And I think that really just dawned on me like Tuesday. I turned to John I'm having a blast.
And that makes all the difference, not being mentally exhausted.
Yeah, and I think similarly to that, having spanning a lot of different industries, which the whole show does and Bridgewater Studio does a lot, I've actually really enjoyed wandering around, looking in places I wouldn't expect to find the things that I need. So, I've been looking for some novel ways to interface with museum exhibits, and I was over in the arcade pavilion yesterday and all the mayhem, but I found ways that they have people interacting with what once would have been a traditional arcade game that are really innovative.
Yeah.
And repeatable and beefy enough to hold up.
And you're like, I could do that.
And you're like, wow, I don't need that game, but if I could take that interface, it would be really cool in another element. So I love all the crossover.
Nice.
Yeah, I just to add to that, I've noted to somebody earlier this week that, just like in a city, the really cool stuff is at the intersections, right? And I think that's true of our business, right? The really cool stuff lives at this sort of like professional intersectionality,
Yeah.
right? Where arcades meet museums, meet engineering, meet media design.
Yeah.
Those intersections, that's where we really come up with the juicy stuff.
That's awesome. Well, hey, what booth are you guys? I don't mean to ask all the hard-hitting trick questions.
Choose. I had to look. 2081.
2081.
Yeah, we'll be here all week. Try the veal.
Yeah, this gets posted right after we record, so there's still any of the listeners, and it's funny, we're getting pretty good, listenership of people just checking in. A lot of our regular viewer or listeners, but some others as well. So that's great. Hopefully, people. So if you come by, tell them Rum and Nerdy sent you. But with that, because I know it's getting late, you guys have a bunch of stuff to do as well. We're gonna wrap it up. I'll start off. Is there a thing you want to plug? Your website or anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us at bridgewaterstudio.net. .net is important.
And there's no S at the end. It's studio.
No, we love what we do, but honestly, one studio is enough.
Yeah, you get it done with the one. You don't need a second.
That's right. Yes, bridgewaterstudio.net.
It's that. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. That's a Garrett joke. Great. Well, thank you guys both. We would also like to thank Dave Martin. He's with us all the time. Thank you.
DomoDavePro.com.
You can check us on our website, rumandnerdy.com. That's rumandnerdy.com.
Social medias, we're also at Rum and Nerdy, also Andy.
You can email us at show@rumandnerdy.com. And we'd love to hear from you and all of that. But otherwise, and here's the thing, I don't know if either of you are regular listeners to the show, but we always end the show with the exact same thing. Do you know what it is?
Stay nerdy, my friends.
Say what?